All right, let's do another one of these, the Homeric Rhapsody things. So we're currently working on a story, an original Homeric style story, which would tell about Achilles sacking Eëtion's town, the town of the father of Andromache, earlier in the Trojan War. So this marks kind of the first instance where we're telling a narrative that's not already detailed by Homer in the Iliad, although there are some plot points in the Iliad that we're sticking to. Let's keep going with it. Currently, Achilles has been tasked by Agamemnon to raid the city, and he visited his lieutenants in his tent. And thus, when the viands were served, and the son of Menetius had brought out those great and tender bits of flesh, all the men stretched out their hands to the good things before them, and they made their sacrifices to the gods above, and the smoke and fat and all the flavors of that fire poured up to the heavens. And meanwhile, up in Mount Olympus, the gods and goddesses looked down upon that scene, and many who had been gathering and bringing their causes to bear saw that scene. And Hera, the mother of gods, she said to the cloud gatherer, "See this, lightning lord, this is something that I can appreciate. One of my favorites down in the entertainments below. He's going out to prove himself. Achilles. We all know what he will eventually be. And I say that this will become one of his defining moments that causes many of the great deeds that will come forth from here. So I propose that I will send Athena of the flashing gray eyes down to earth to inspire him to send a speech among his myrmidons and bring his entire force to bear upon that town of Eëtion, so that we may cause some such great siege on that town." And the Sky Father said to her, smiling as he did so, "O Hera, I will not deny you this thing. When there is no other force causing me to keep my own counsel, I cannot deny you much, nor to Athena, the Trito-born. So do this, and favor your man Achilles, and we will see what deeds he may do. For he has killed many a man in the war, though none who can count themselves great. And so we have not truly seen his strength tested, though the war be already a year past. And so, going on, they put their plan into motion, and Athena of the flashing eyes yoked her chariot, and she stepped up into the car, grabbing the bridle, and she flew off, that goddess ranging through the skies, just as a master mariner might take to the waves. but moving at such a speed as to match any man, a traveler in thought, as he might travel from one place to another in his mind that he has visited before, so could Athena flash down to earth in her great sky chariot. But as she did so, another came to Zeus, another of his favorites, Artemis, that daughter of the silver bow, who ranged through the mountains and who had a fierce love for the land of Troy and those about. For this mountain town of Eëtion's Thebes, she held her own favor, and she spoke to that cloud-gatherer. "Oh, Father, I do not want to see this town of Thebes destroyed, sacked, and raided, all its people brought down low, either to have dust heaped upon them or to be sold into slavery. No, this is one of the places which I favor. I would ask that it be spared, that we may see it thrive, and its king Eëtion and its queen Tecmessa go on for many a year, though they be allied to Troy." And Zeus frowned at this, his brow furrowed, and he said, "O daughter, I would not deny anything to you on a normal circumstance, but in this I cannot, because it is already fated that this town of Eëtion's Thebes will fall, and I cannot change the decrees of the fates any more than you or a mortal down on earth. Such is the power that those hold. I do not deign to meddle in their affairs, no further than the small things which we gods take on. But let me say this, that I will cause some mischief among the Myrmidons, that Achilles, though reinforced by his men, those great Myrmidons in their thousands, that there will be some strife among them, that they will not yet be able to mobilize once they are on the field, and that Achilles will be forced to prove his valor even further, so that he might be one man against many. And thus, even more shall I promise. For though these Thebans of Eëtion's town hold that great counselor Phoenix as a captive, though he be an enemy, I will put it into his mind that he will counsel these Thebans and give them information and support their fighting against the Myrmidons, or at least seem to do so. And so will these of Eëtion's town be the great Eëtion himself and that Queen Tecmessa will be given all the information that they could desire about the men down there. And even if Phoenix does not waver in his heart against Achilles, that boy that he loves, who he has raised from a squalling babe up till the present, even if he does not waver against his child, he will provide some sort of support in this endeavor. Such will I promise to you, though it be an unexpected turn for this great and loyal counselor. And thus, sated, that Artemis of the silver tresses sat back down, satisfied, as she knew she could not overturn the will of the fates, and she gained some great entertainments for the time to come. For though Achilles shall bring his force to bear against this town of Thebes, he would not take it without great struggle, and without further mischief, that he himself could not foresee, but that the cloud-gatherer was already putting into motion. Okay, not bad, a little clunky. There's a couple parts, so, okay, for anybody who remembers, the thing that we're trying to do here is we're telling the story of Achilles taking on Thebes, not seven-gated Thebes and not Egyptian Thebes, but the one that Eëtion, father of Andromache, controlled. I'm pretty sure it was called Thebes. If not, then that's pretty confusing for this story, but whatever. In my version, it's called Thebes. But we're basing Achilles' story on a sort of a loose outline of the story of Cú Chulainn, the great Irish, almost superheroic figure, sort of the Irish Achilles, from ancient Irish tales, and specifically on the Toinbo Kulinge, the Cattle Raid of Cooley, and sort of applying him to sort of like a sketch of that event or that story. And I was kind of thinking about it because I've been fascinated by Robert Graves' interpretation of the Greek myths, where he claims that pretty much all cultural stories come from the same stories, and that there's like cross-pollination between every culture's mythologies. And so I thought it would be interesting if, similar to how a lot of Greek myths come from Egyptian stuff or other things, and other stuff comes from Greek things, I thought it'd be interesting if we built a sort of Homeric story that is a Greek myth, but is based on a ancient Irish myth. Because, you know, the ancient Irish stories were very clearly written down much later than the ones, the Greek ones. But those two were oral traditions, and I'm not that well versed in the ancient Irish stories. I've only read like, a dozen of them, I guess. But it's, I haven't read like a zillion like with Greek stuff, so I don't know that much about it. But if it's an oral tradition, it could have been, who knows when it was started. It doesn't really matter that it would have to have been a contemporary of the Greek stuff, because we're just writing this story off the top of our heads, and it doesn't, it's the modern day now. But I think it's interesting also to think about that as kind of a secondary thing of like, that somehow this could fit into that mythology. And so anyway, all of this to say that was an interesting set of problems that we kind of established here. Because what I'm trying to do, for anybody who knows the story of the Toyn, I think it's pronounced Toyn, the Cattle Raid of Cooley, the idea is that Cú Chulainn is kind of fending off the invaders solo, because all of his supporting armies, the people who would help him from Ulster, there's some kind of like plot device where there's like a longer story about what's going on, but they basically can't come to help him. So he's continuously fighting them off by himself. And then also there's a guy who sort of raised Cú Chulainn, Fergus, who is he's one of the exiles from Ulster who's helping the enemy force who is fighting against Cú Chulainn. So when I was thinking of doing this when we first were saying it. I was thinking like, well, it's interesting because if we made it so that Phoenix was captured by these guys, by the guys from Eëtion's Thebes, for some reason, I don't know why how they would do that, but if we just came up with that, then you could kind of you could start to see where the storyline would fall into place, because then we could have Achilles do similar feats to Cú Chulainn, and we could have Phoenix sort of play the role of Fergus. And so we'll see where that goes. I kind of made it so that the gods explain to the audience what is about to happen, which again is sort of a Homeric type thing. But in my kind of haste to figure out how I'm going to explain the plot line, I didn't really leave a lot of room for like interesting storytelling. So it's a little bit more of like a just the facts type of one, but you know, it's fine. I thought it was also interesting to apply Artemis to one of these where she doesn't really have a role in the Iliad almost at all, except for when the gods fight each other. So I thought it'd be interesting if like she particularly cared about one of these supporting cities. You know, I just came up with the idea that I called it once like wooded Thebes or something, like maybe there's a lot of forests nearby or something, and so it's under her protection in the same way that, you know, Hera talks about how she favors 3 cities, and Zeus says like he'll destroy those cities later if he can destroy Troy. She could destroy Troy now. We would decide that like Artemis is protecting this one, and that's why Zeus is basically explaining like, I'm going to create these plot devices for you, Artemis, so that I'm also describing the gods stuff where it's like that these are entertainments for them. So like she's can't win the battle for the Thebans, but Zeus can make it a more interesting fight for them and like allow them to win greater glory, though they're still going to lose. So again, you know, you can see where the plot is starting to kind of come into shape, and I guess that now all the major elements are in place, and now we would just send the army of Myrmidons out there, and we'll see what happens. Again, as you can hear from what I was saying, like I had like a small idea of like, if I applied the story of Cú Chulainn to this untold story of Achilles sacking Eëtion's Thebes, there are certain plot points that feel like they would fit. There's like 4 plot points that I decided immediately when I thought of that, like that's what this would be. And I just explained all of them. But beyond that, nothing is planned in this stuff. I don't take any notes or come up with anything beforehand. It's all off the top of my head, which is how we always do this with the Homeric style stuff. So it'll be interesting coming up with this because I don't really have that many ideas. For full disclosure, I do have one more idea, which is that Andromache's, I believe it's 6 brothers, who she describes in the Iliad that they were killed by Achilles in Thebes. I figure that they would be somehow play major roles in what's to come, and that's again the entire extent of what is planned. So not a lot. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, let's keep going with it.